14 days left before we vote. I'm Gary Sutton. WSBA News Time is 6:10. Just a little feeling for the debate last night with us this morning. Former Admiral, former Congressman Joe Sestak on York's Morning News to give his views on what he thought last night. Good morning, Joe. Welcome back.
Morning. Great to be with you, Gary. Thank you.
Joe, you heard some of the comments from last night. What struck you about this debate last night as you watched it?
Well, first off, I think that they both acknowledge what, we know here living in Pennsylvania, that our national security really does begin here at home. It is about our economic security overall. Without that, you cannot have afford the type of leadership that we want to have around the world, nor we have the educated youth that can serve in our military. So I thought that was the bottom line about this. I also thought to a large extent that, the way that Mr. Romney presented his ideas and the president talked about some of what had occurred over the past 4 years, that at least in words, they weren't totally that different in how they might go about having U.S. leadership throughout the world. And so those are the two largest items that I walked out of that debate with.
Yeah, I felt the same way on your second point, that they're really, they seem to almost be in agreement. One thing last night, though, that I heard the president say over and over again was, that's just not true. You just didn't say that. He was trying to kind of take words from the past and put it on Romney, and it looked like Romney was having none of it, albeit in a much more civil way than the last debate that we saw.
Yeah, look, I think that the president, there was a number of times, have said certain issues that, Gary, I really do feel he's been put not in the correct light. Like, for example, on Iran. I mean, you know as well as I do that it was in 2003 that those centrifuges began to actually be constructed. And number two is the president's kind of constrained by secrecy about talking about the new domain of warfare that we've undertaken, cyberspace warfare, where we built the type of software program, the United States of America, that took down those centrifuges a little over a year plus ago. So those are the kind of things where, quite frankly, Gary, I think he was right to say, that isn't exactly the right story. Let me tell you about what we've done on Iran.
Yet at the same time, I think, Romney's coming back and saying, well, listen, there are some things here. Maybe we shouldn't be telling people when we're leaving, in terms of Afghanistan. And, those were some of the types of things that came up last night. When we come back, Joe, there's a piece that specifically I thought was tailored for you this morning. And it had to do with ships and it had to do with submarines last night.
Right,
I want you to hear that when we come back, and then your comments on that, because you've got a little expertise there that I would dare say I have to go long and far to find elsewhere. Joe Sestak back with us at 6:20 here on York's Morning News. WSBA News Time, 6:15. You heard the crowd rustling a little bit last night. Joe Sestak with us this morning. Joe, you've had a little bit of experience with submarines and aircraft carriers and those kind of things. I guess you're supposed to chuckle at that point, but was the president talking down to Romney at that point? How did you take that?
Well, I don't think the point that I want to be strongly made came out in it, although maybe the president was trying to touch upon it. And the issue is this. Take an aircraft carrier, and I've spoken on your show about this before, Gary. Today's aircraft carrier, the one that I had commanded a few years ago, was actually in existence over 15 years ago. Today, that aircraft carrier can strike within 24 hours 9 times the targets that it could do just 15 years ago.
Wow.
Because today, those roughly 80 aircraft carry very smaller bombs, and the reason is that they're precision-guided exactly to go where they have to. And second, it's tied into satellites that pick up emerging targets and give you pinpoint accuracy as you're flying around. You don't even have, before you had to know what you're going to do before you took off. The change in our Navy is such that you can today do so much more with less numbers because we have more capacity, because we have more capability, because you know where everything is much better. No admiral today would change out of his fleet for a fleet of only 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago. The capability is what matters today. Know where your enemy is, not how many you have. A certain number matters, but so much less than ever before.
Joe, as an admiral, you had to serve a commander-in-chief. As you watched these two last night vie to be your commander-in-chief, would you be comfortable with either one of them or more with one than the other?
I think both of the two men can serve as commander-in-chief. overarchingly, I support the president because of something that did not come out as well as it needed to last night. We have shifted in the last 2 years under this president our primary focus towards the Western Pacific, China, which is called the South and the East China Sea. Its core interest, those two words, core interest, is China's euphemism for what it says about Taiwan, that it claims as its national territory.
Right.
They want to control the national resources in the East and the South China Sea. So the president has moved 60% of our Navy over there, our Marines into Australia. He's been doing something that I feel our center of strategic interest is for the 21st century, not just militarily, but diplomatically, economically, etc. And in that sense, that he had that strategic thought to get out of that tragic misadventure of Iraq, get us into the places where we most have to be an honest broker to keep from conflagration from happening, protecting international resources to our benefit and the world's. I support that president as having a better feel for the policies needed to take us forward.
Joe, appreciate you taking the time this morning. I know you're doing a lot of running today, so thank you for starting the day with us, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Great. Passing through your area on the way to Pittsburgh. Take care.
Thanks so much. Joe Sestak with us this morning, former congressman, former admiral as well, with his thoughts on last night's debate, and we still have a lot more coming up today as we look at it from all different angles.